not seeing you. Are you there, Bella?
Oh yeah, I'm here. Is my camera? I see myself in the left corner.
Okay,
I don't know why
well,
you can't see me. I
we're
see
live.
myself. Okay, hi. Sorry about that. I'm looking for the really bigger picture. Good evening. Thank you so much. There
There you
we
go.
are. Hi, Uncle Jim. How are you?
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, 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 everyone.
Thank you.
Tonight, I have extra special superstar guest tonight, Audrey Bella Langston, kidney transplant patient, kidney advocate, and podcaster, broadcaster. It's an understatement for me to say that Bella has a very compelling kidney stories. As you know, your Uncle Jim's heard a few kidney stories in his time, and this may be the very best one I've ever heard.
Aww.
So, Bella is a retired Chicago police officer, mother, and grandmother. Her kidney story begins in 1993. She was on a weekend trip with friends when suddenly she became very ill. By the next day, she was rushed home and to a Chicago hospital. Her blood pressure had skyrocketed, and she had gone completely and totally, temporarily, fortunately, blind. After she was admitted, she had a biopsy performed on her kidneys and was diagnosed with FSGS. As a new police officer and single mother of two young children, this was devastating news. Bella, however, is a fighter. When I say fighter, I mean fighter, folks. She was assigned to a nephrologist. She began to educate herself about kidney disease and FSGS. She began to advocate with the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois, becoming one of their most trusted public speakers, and with the gift of hope. She is also a member of the task force team called Life Goes On, founded by the Illinois Secretary of State, Jesse White, and she has worked for the National Organization for Transplant Enlightenment at Tampa General Hospital. After an 8-year period, because she was so good about maintaining her kidney diet and exercise, after an 8-year period, she was placed on the kidney transplant list. And after several false starts, and I mean, this is an interesting part of the story, my friends, after several false starts, she had to start peritoneal dialysis. She was on PD for 6 months when her godson offered her a kidney. They were a perfect match. And on Friday, March 4th, 2005, she received her transplant at Northwestern Hospital in Chicago, just in time for her birthday. She is now 17 years out from her transplant. Finally, as you know, Bella has given back to the community by educating and raising awareness with her broadcasts and podcasts, including with Bella's Hope and her work with the Urban Health Media Outreach. So, and if you look in the comments to this broadcast, several of her broadcast podcasts are in the comments. Her interview with the fellows from Second Chance, Philip and Tefero, that's also in the comments. You may want to check that out. You can find her site on Twitter and lots of other things. And like I said, I must have posted today about a half a dozen of her wonderful broadcasts. So please check them out when you get time. Please give a warm welcome to our good friend, Audrey Bella Langston. Bella, how are you?
Hi, I'm wonderful. Good evening. Thank you for having me, Uncle Jim. And hello to your followers, everybody. I'm so excited to be here.
Did I state everything correctly in the introduction?
Yes, you very good. You gave a pretty much great synopsis of my background, Uncle Jim. It was great. The role that I played in Illinois, of course, I no longer play that role with regard to being a part of the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois, as well as with the wonderful Jesse White, the Secretary of State, because I retired from the Chicago Police Department in 2014, and I relocated here to Florida in 2015. So other than that, yes, everything is still really great. My start, you mentioned NOTE, National Organization for Transplant Enlightenment. That is an organization, one of the first organizations that I got with when I moved here to Florida. I'm that girl. I love giving back. I love volunteering. Obviously, I'm a people person and a public servant at heart, being a Chicago police officer. But also, I knew that coming to a new state where I had no family and literally no friends, and totally starting my life over, I knew that the best thing for me to do, and what God was leading me to do, was go right in and get involved. And they were the first organization that I came into contact with through a radio advertisement about them. And so, yeah, they were amazing. Everyone on that team has some type of organ, whether it's heart, kidney, oh gosh, we had liver. We just had a variety of recipients, and they're all great. And from that, culminated into me being asked through Tampa General Volunteer Department to be, a part of PFAC, their Patient Advisory Council. And I was once co-chairman of their transplant PFAC board. So I have just been so blessed to be involved in so many things. LifeLink of Florida. It's just a blessing to be able to give back.
Okay, Bella, I want to give a shout out to my best friend who checked in, Kent Bressler. Kent's the driving force behind Kidney Solutions, and I just wanted to say Kent's a little under the weather today.
Aww.
And still he's checking in, and God, I love you, Kent. I hope you get well
awesome.
soon.
Yeah, blessings to you for your recovery, Kent.
So
hello.
I understand, Bella, that you're getting ready to move again. What's the story with that?
Yeah, so I have now been here in Florida 7 years, and it's been wonderful, and it's been hard to, to not have family at my immediate disposal, so to speak. My children, both my children live in different states. And that has been really difficult, especially during the time of the pandemic lockdown. It was about a year and a half before I finally got to see my kids, because of course, as you guys all know, traveling shut down, just everything. And of course, as a recipient, it definitely was not safe for me to travel, nor was it safe for my children to come here, because my daughter actually wanted to come during that time. And I advised her that wasn't a good idea, as well as her brother, my son. And, so that was really a difficult time. And, I feel during that time, there was a lesson in that for us all, whatever that is, for each person individually. God made it where we had to just rely on being in our own space and being okay with that. And I'm sure it was a little bit of a difference when you have a family, especially, you're a spouse, children. And then some of them said, oh, they got on my nerves. It depends on each family, but to be in just my place with just me and totally cut off from the world. Oh my God, I totally had to rely on God to get me through that. Thank God for things like this, for Zoom and just all the social media outlets that keep us connected to one another. But it also made me realize that it was time for me to get back near at least one of my kids. And, as we get older, I'll be 61 on my next birthday. And I just kind of, I feel a shift in my life, a spiritual shift. And I prayed about that with God and said, hey, if this isn't okay, I know you're going to shut it down, but everything has been going well. And so I'm really excited about the transition.
Okay. Please tell us a little bit about where you grew up, your educational history, and your employment experience.
Yeah, so as I said, I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois, South Side girl, called my community where I grew up was called Chatham. And yeah, and that's where, of course, I was in the Catholic school system, grammar school, high school. I was a Catholic school girl. Graduated. I went to local college. I did not go away. I was pregnant with my son by the time I was 18. I had him. And so I went to local college and started my gen eds, and eventually had a desire to go into interior design. I have always been good with designing and very artistic in organizational skills and things like that. And my children's dad and my kids are almost 14 years apart. So much later came my daughter, but we were married, and we were married for almost 15 years before we unfortunately divorced. And my career was many years with regard to the Chicago Police Department. I started out in a career in law firms and secretarial work and things like that. Went even into car dealership industry for a while and was their dealer trader. And that's why I know so much about cars. They think they're going to, give me the old slipperoonie when I'm buying a car until they start hearing me talk about it. They're like, you know a lot about this business. I'm like, yep, I used to be in it. But that was great. And like I said, from that went into law. And I think the law field kind of, for whatever reason, not necessarily led me into law enforcement, but I had a knowledge, I had knowledge of it. And yeah, and as far as coming about becoming a Chicago police officer, that was a dare. I just literally wanted to see if I could pass the test, and lo and behold, I passed that test. There's a qualified and there's a highly qualified bracket. At least that's how it was back in the early 90s. And I scored in the highly qualified bracket. And so that kind of starts the process. It's a very lengthy process that can take almost a year for it to go through each phase that you have to go through. But as God's fate would have it, I found out by the time I got to the second phase that I was pregnant with my daughter, and that shut everything down. And so they said, well, we want to keep you in a status of active, but we know you're pregnant, and please call us when you have your baby after you go through your recovery if you're still interested. They called me. My daughter was only 6 weeks old, and they were like, did you have your baby? And it's like, yeah, and she great. And I actually wasn't planning, Uncle Jim, because I had a baby now again, and my son was a teenager. And that was pretty much when my divorce started to take a dive, maybe a year or two before that. I really was more so focused on wanting to just care for my kids. However, I knew that based on the, not so much the job itself, but all the wonderful benefits that it offered would be a good fit for me as a newly single mom. And so I proceeded forth, and oh boy, it was rough, but God got me through. It's not easy being a cop. It's not easy getting to that point, especially for a woman who's about 45 pounds overweight from baby fat, and and never having shot a gun in her life, and just all the things that you have to learn. But God got me through it, and I retired with right at 22 years of service.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about your kidney experience. It's my understanding that your issues began in March of 1993. You're still on a probationary status with the Chicago Police Department. You have a 6-month-old daughter, a 13-year-old son. You're a single mom. Tell us what happened.
Sure. Yeah. So, like when I shared about being out of shape, well, trust me, by the time I got to the end of my of preparing for graduation to be sworn in graduation, all that weight was gone. I was in literally what I felt was the greatest shape of my life. For those who remember the movie, not the movie, but the show, The A-Team with Mr. T and, those guys, Mr. T's brother was my physical training instructor in the Chicago Police Academy. And he was very hard on me. And I'm sure I called him a bunch of things under my breath during those grueling times in the gym, but that man is the person who helped me get into excellent shape. And so when I graduated and got my assignment to what district I was going to be working in, the worst thing that could have happened to me was I got put on midnights. I was never a night girl. Was an all day 9 to 5er. Again, I was in corporate before then, and I was in bed every night by I might watch the news, and right after that, I was going to bed. So imagine having to totally change your body clock around. And again, being a mom with a child that young, making sure everything my son has going on with school and everything is okay. So I had to get used to that. And I was such a fanatic about working out to remain in shape that I wasn't that cop that would get off work and just go home like many did that work nights and go to bed. I hit the gym for about an hour and a half or 2 hours because I'm wired now. You get that second wind. And then I would go home and my son would already have left for school because by then he was a freshman in high school. And my grandparents would keep my daughter overnight, or their other grandparents, their dad's parents, and she'd want to play with me. Her mama, she's a baby, and I would stay up all day with her. And I wasn't actually going to bed until 6 o'clock in the evening. And I had just worked all night. Sometimes I'd have to leave work and go to court, directly to court to testify on a felony arrest or whatever had my name on it, bottom line. So my grandmother, God rest her soul, used to be so frustrated with me because she says, you're not getting enough rest. And by the way, my family was never down with me being the police. They got used to it though. But yeah, and so that the particular weekend of my birthday that year, some friends wanted to take me out of town for my birthday. And so we did that, which was in Wisconsin Dells, beautiful place. We had a beautiful cottage for the weekend, and they have activities and things you can do around there, canoeing, whatever, biking, hiking. And I remember not feeling well on the way. It was kind of like I didn't feel sick. I just didn't. It was something off and I couldn't explain it because I was always a healthy person, prior to that. And so as we got closer to our destination, which is roughly about a 3.5, not quite 4-hour drive, I started to feel a little nauseous. And also I noticed the day before I was urinating more frequently, but didn't give that too much thought until these other things started to manifest. I had a headache. I generally am not a headache person. I had eaten, but didn't have that much of an appetite. So by the time we get there, everybody, we're ready to party, break out the wine or whatever. And I'm like, you don't look too good. Why don't you just lie down and rest a while? You haven't slept. We'll get started tomorrow. So I was fine with that. I think I fell asleep, but I was up and down through the night going to the bathroom. Now, what I was experiencing was to urinate frequently, although the output was very minimal. You know what I mean? So I didn't understand what was going on. The headache amplified, nausea, but I don't recall vomiting, but just feeling yuck, just like yucky, like something's not right. So I went back to bed, and by the next morning, it was everything that had happened the night before had amplified, and I couldn't understand it. And I think it was causing me stress, obviously. And I said, hey, you guys got to get up. I'm sick. I want to go home. Something's wrong with me. I don't know what it is. So they were like, oh, okay. So, gathering up all our things and everything. We get in the car, check out, tell the people what happened. We leave. And they were like, why don't you just lay back and try to sleep? We're going to take you right to the hospital. And I said, no, don't take me back to Chicago. Don't stop me at one of these, I can make it back to the city. And about 40 minutes, we need to stop for gas. I went in the bathroom. I had to keep going to the bathroom. We had to stop like 3 times. And I took my purse with me. I went in the bathroom, same thing. The urine was very, very, very minimal. And we left, got back in the car. I can only tell you, I remember dozing off again for a hot second. And then one of my friends goes, where's your purse? Just all of a sudden, where's your purse? Wake up, where's your purse? And I go, what? My purse? I don't know. I don't care. That's what I told them. Leave me alone. They were like, oh my God, she took her purse in that bathroom. So they had to do a beeline and turn around, go back to the gas station, let us in this bathroom, had to tell them we're police officer or whatever. There's my purse right there next to I dropped it right near the commode, and my duty weapon was in it, all my ID, my badge, probably about $200 in cash. And they were like, okay, something's wrong, with her. So we left, got back on the road. I dozed off. I woke up. I was blind. I started screaming. I thought I didn't have I wear contact lenses, and without them, I got to wear glasses because I'm very nearsighted. And they were like, I said, where's my contacts? Where's my glasses? And they said, you didn't put your contacts in or whatever. I said, I can't see. And I just started crying. And that gas, got to the ER. My head was like it was about to burst. And first thing I heard them telling them, I couldn't see, they said she went blind. She what? She went blind on the way. So I felt them slap the blood pressure cuff on. My blood pressure was like 180, 190, or over like 200 or something. They told them later that if you had gotten her here 15, 20 minutes later, she was about to have a massive stroke, And so I remember the nurse asking me questions, and I was very agitated and irritated. I'm not like that. And she said, lift your tongue up, honey. I'm going to have to give you something to put under there to take your blood pressure down, really. And it's going to make your head hurt. And I remember going, no, my head is about to explode already. And she said, we have to. And so they began asking me many questions. Then suddenly they began asking me questions about renal problems. And I said, no, I never had any problems. I'm a cop. My medical stuff was excellent, which is another miracle, by the way, that wasn't caught by the police department through that extensive physical stuff. Because had it been, they wouldn't have touched me with a 10-foot pole as far as hiring me. It just would not have happened. So I've always said God meant for me to have that job. But I told them my grandmother suffered from kidney disease. And so bottom line, they admitted me, they did a biopsy, and the next morning, my sight started to gradually come back over the course of probably about 4 hours. And I can truly say during that time, not that I've always respected and had an appreciation and an admiration for blind people. But I tell you, going through it myself and seeing how that was, and stumbling around and you know, because I was nervous in my family, and I'm trying to get, and they were like, no, you need to stay in the bed. That was a whole nother experience. And so the doctor came in and he told me that I had renal disease, kidney disease, and what had happened was one of my kidneys was only operating at 30%, and he said that was your body signaling you that was something is wrong. And he kind of explained, this is what this is and what it's about, and eventually both of your kidneys are going to go bad, and you're going to eventually at some point in life need a kidney transplant. Any questions? That's what he said. And I'm like, I felt my heart drop, and he did not have a bedside manner at all. He was just a matter-of-factly type doctor. And I'm just sitting there floored. It was like time stood still. And all I could think about is, oh God, my poor babies, my poor kids, what are they going to do? Because I was thinking doom and gloom. You know, I watched my grandmother go through it. And, you know, she got diagnosed much later in life at about almost 70. And my grandmother was on dialysis for at least 12 or 13 years before she, you know, passed on in her 80s, like 83, 84, never having the prospect of a potential transplant. But I had no idea what I was going to do. I thought I was going to lose my job that I had worked so hard for, you know, so that's where that process kind of began. The doctor said he said, I said, well, what do we do? What can I do to, you know, can I stop? No. What I would like you to do is I'd like to start you out by putting you on a steroid to help slow the process. Yes, prednisone. And I said, wait a second, I knew nothing about that stuff, Jim, like I do now. I said, wait, but I remember hearing about it from some people who I heard talk about it before. I said, wait, is that drug that blows people up and gives them a big face and they're eating all the time? He goes, well, yeah, but I go, well, no, I'm not taking that. I'm a cop. I can't take that. I have to do my job, and I can't do it all blown up and, you know, not knowing that my situation would be different. I could have been put in a different status. But again, I was very new on the job and very afraid. And on probation, you have to be on it for a year, clean as a bill, you know, without any problems, or they can just let you go like that. And so he said, well, then no, I'm going to put you on this binder and a few other things. But then if you don't want to take it, that's up to you. Okay, fine. Well, right away, as soon as I started to educate myself, I got rid of him and got me a real doctor who I did. I go, you're fired. I told him about a month after, I don't like your attitude. And so, yeah, I got a new nephrologist who everything was great with. And I don't want to continue. I'll let you, in case I'm kind of going over your head, I'll let you ask me, you know, if there was something else regarding that. And I'm sorry, FSGS, Uncle Jim, is what he said I was diagnosed with, if I didn't say that. Segmental glomerulosclerosis. It's the scarring of the glomeruli.
No worries. No worries.
Okay.
This is Uncle Jim's show. No worries, man.
Okay.
It's my understanding that you were put on a renal diet and you continued to work out, and you began to educate yourself about, or continued to work out, I should say, and you began to educate yourself about kidney disease and FSGS. Can you tell us a little bit about what you learned?
Yeah. So, like I said, I had some familiarity with kidney disease because of being so close to my grandmother and watching her deal with it and learning a few things from having that relationship with her illness. But, you know, the thing, I was reading everything, like, I was really wanting to know first, what can I do to slow this down? You know, what I'm a fighter, and so I'm gonna try always to do the right thing. I was always very in tune with my health and athletic, even before, you know, having my kid. I kickboxing and oh gosh, everything. I was a belly dancer. I played racquetball. I mean, I just loved variety of things. I love staying in shape as best as I could. And so it wasn't much to learn about slowing it down necessarily, because it was going to do what it was going to do over time, as he said. So that was truthful. However, a key factor is cutting out things like salt, you know, because I'm sorry, also the reason my blood pressure elevated to the point where I went blind wasn't necessarily just predicated on finding out I had renal disease, but finding out I also had high blood pressure, which really didn't surprise me necessarily, considering I was so stressed during my entire process of becoming a police officer, as well as going through an unfortunate divorce. However, that is what caused my blindness. You know, the blood pressure went up far too high. Hi, Susan. Thank you. And so from that point, I knew, okay, I'm going to cut some things out of my diet. Salt, the doctor, it was suggested about lowering the protein level because I was already spilling so much protein, which, by the way, I was told that by my gynecologist, my OB-GYN, during my pregnancy with my daughter. And I want to say, I'm pretty sure that's when it was gradually surfacing. But he never called in a specialist, which he talked about doing, a nephrologist. Now, to me at that time meant absolutely nothing. I had healthy pregnancy. So I'm like, he said, yeah, you're spilling a lot of protein. Most pregnant women do, but you're spilling an abnormally high amount. I'm going to talk to my friend that's a nephrologist. I'm like, okay, yeah. Never came back up. I never thought about it. So I said, okay, protein, we're talking about red meat. We're talking about, well, yeah. I said, no problem. I'm cutting it out. And they were like, no, the dietitian, you don't have to cut it out, just in moderation. Nope, I'm cutting it out. And to this day, which we're almost at 20 years, I have never touched again beef and pork. And so I was, you know, juicing again with my exercise. And those were the things that I used to keep my body in shape, as well as just learning about it. Okay, what does this mean when that time comes, when it elevates? You know, what are going to be my options? You know, and of course, always the best option is that transplant, as well as living donor versus, you know, they used to call it, remember, Uncle Jim, they used to call it cadaveric donor, cadaver donor.
Yep.
Stop that. They go, we don't want to go with that anymore. That freaks people out. I'm like, well.
Yeah, it offends some folks.
Yeah, it was really offending people. So I said, okay, well, what are we calling it now? Deceased donor. Okay. Well, I'm not, I guess the people won't be offended by that. Okay. So, I learned about that process and got right on board, reached out to the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois, told them who I was, made a phone call. They said, well, why don't you come in and see us? We're actually going to be having a, a volunteer meeting the following week. Okay, great. What time? And that's what started that whole process to me joining forces with them. And, you know, at first I was just hanging back in the cut, listening, you know, to everybody, and, you know, kind of just learning what they're about and what they're talking about. And oh my gosh, it was just so amazing with a lot of these already recipients, as well as those in my predicament who had been diagnosed. And it was just this family bond that was just such a blessing. And then they started asking me to talk more about my situation. And they, you know, people would always freak out when they would find out I was a cop, you know. And so they asked me, it started out, getting involved in public things moved to seminars, transplant seminars, and all that just culminated from for me reaching out to them. And then someone approached me that was from the Secretary of State. In fact, there's a gentleman, Jack Lynch. He's been with the Gift of Hope. He runs that part where I'm sure you've heard of him, Jim.
Yeah.
Jack and I go way back, and I, had him on my show, and he was telling Gift of Hope about me, and so we connected and did some things together. And then that's when I got asked to be a part of Jesse White's task force. I met him, and he does a lot with that because he had a brother who died from kidney disease, and that's where his major passion for it came from. And yeah, so that's how all those doors opened there.
Okay. I was surprised when I was listening to the Second Chance broadcast how much support you really got at work concerning your condition. I understand that by the end of 2003, you were actually placed on a limited duty status, an administrative type job. Can you tell us a little bit about that and some of the things you did to keep body, soul, and mind together?
Yeah. So, I was on the street, still in what's considered aggressive patrol, for all that time. We're talking that 8-year span until my illness started to get more aggressive, or give it about 6.5, to where I could no longer, my nephrologist was no longer comfortable with me being a patrol officer, where I had to get physical when necessary, or just being in the position of having to fight with someone or get hurt. And so my records, we had, as an officer, we have our own medical section. And, when you are in a situation like that, you come and talk to them, and you bring them all the documentation of what you're going through, what the doctor is saying. And if the doctor says, well, yeah, I need her to be in a limited duty status because of XYZ, they are required. They have to put me in that status to not be on the street. So they take you out and they put you of their choice in an administrative position, which I was even blessed through that, because now just because you're an admin don't mean you want to work in every particular districts on the police department. That's a whole nother story. But I was so fortunate to be placed in our traffic court division, because I had an amazing commander there, lieutenant, and he was a very healthy man into triathlons, and he was just so passionate and about my situation, taking care of my kids and facing dialysis and all that. And so that in turn is what put me in that place, because it was what was best for, my health, to keep me safe. And I don't know if you've come up to the part about asking about, I'm sorry, about the actual, facing dialysis and that part yet, when that comes up.
I promise I'm going to get there.
Okay. I hope I answered everything you said. And so, yeah, I worked in traffic court, which is a great position. That position that I had there, I was called the I was his personal assistant, deviations officer. What that is that it was my job to make sure that every officer who is due in traffic court is going to be there, and that they're notified of that. That's taken very seriously. I'm sure on every department, but on CPD, because if you've written tickets and for whatever reason those tickets were written, you got to be physically there in court to substantiate, right, you wrote that ticket, right? So the officer doesn't show up, that means the judge has to release that person's license, and the city loses money, and the city don't like that. So then the officer would be suspended for a day because they missed court. That's the way that worked. Yeah. And so I had a lot of power in that position. Yeah, well, I'm just being real. It's really funny when I think back on it. Yeah, I got plenty of Starbucks and flowers, and you got me, you know. Yeah, no, but it was great. I loved it.
I understand you were also acting as a truant officer, and you did a little moonlighting to help pay the rent, that kind of thing.
Did moonlighting? Yes, I did. I was a truant officer for a um, high school in a really impoverished area. Um, and that was a different experience too. But the blessing really, it wasn't even about the money, because I mean it was about the extra income, but once I got there and I saw what a lot of those kids, how they were reacting and talking to them more, you know, it takes a minute to get them to warm up to you. And the sad thing is, kids of then and kids of today think all police are the enemy. And that breaks my heart, everything going on with a lot of these law enforcement agencies. Um, we took an oath to serve and protect people. We did not take we have a lot of power, and that power is not supposed to be misused in any way. And it bothers me that that is what's happening. We are the start of a process of someone who has committed a crime. We are not the judge, and we are not the jury, and we are not the executioner. And it's really sad when you have these officers who are going overly above and beyond for whatever all their reasons are, and they're taking lives, and they become, instead of law enforcement officers, like mercenaries. And that's not what that job is about. And it was always important to me to not be that person, to say, hey, I am truly one of the good guys. I am in this to do the right thing. And those children, what I came to discover, Uncle Jim, just needed a lot of love. They weren't getting it at home, you know. And when you give that to them, they just, not all, but if I can save 2 lives and see those kids graduate, which is what I did, I took a couple of them under my wing, and they graduated from high school. That is just, I felt so blessed to be able to be a part of their lives in that way. And yeah, I did other moonlighting gigs. I've done a lot of side gigs with celebrities, some of the WNBA, excuse me, some of the few of the WNBA too, but the NBA guys, John Sally, Robert Horry, yeah, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, all of them. Those were exciting times hanging out with them. Dennis Rodman, love him. He's a little cuckoo, but he's awesome. Even R. Kelly, I did a big thing with him. You know, I always kind of had in the back of my mind about him. But anyway, I've been able to do some really fun things as a police officer, some security details and stuff.
Okay, you mentioned to us that you were able to stay off dialysis for 8 years as a result of a very strict renal diet and continuing exercise. Tell us a little bit about what happened when you began on dialysis around April of 2004. What advice did you get from your doctor, and what went on there?
Yeah, so the whole thing with me was I was trying to avoid dialysis because my renal function, I didn't feel terrible. You know, I didn't feel sick all the time. When that started to happen, it just hit like a ton of bricks, you know, years down the line. So what we were doing initially, my doctor was encouraging me, yeah, Bella, you know, if you can get a living donor, I just think that would be so awesome for you, you know. And it had already begun. You know, I had 4, 1, 2, 3, 3 potential living donors, one of which was my son. And I just knew my son was going to be the great match because that was my child. But as it turns out, he really wasn't that good of a match, which I couldn't believe that. And I asked the doctor, I don't understand. And, you know, sometimes they're more of a match with the other parent. Okay, I get that. And we want to get you really close, you know. And they said, what it probably is Ashley, my daughter, who was very young at that time, like 8, 9 years old, is probably your better match. And so it made more sense to me, you know. And so one of the other potential donors, that didn't go through. They found out they had borderline hypertension. So they won't touch you. You know, they are very strict about, you're going to get checked for everything. You know what I mean? And then the other person, she was a cousin-in-law, and she wanted to donate. And she was actually an employee at the hospital. I was initially at University of Chicago during this time. And she got tested, went through all the tests, flying colors, was passing everything. And then all of a sudden, her husband hit her up with divorce papers. And she was devastated. I was devastated for her. And I told her, okay, I want you to stop the process now, because you are I knew you're about to embark upon something very intense. And I don't want you, what you're trying to do for me is intense in itself. And you know, you just can't have balance both of those. So thank you so much. She was like, no, I want to do this. God's leading me to do this. I'll deal with that. Okay, fine. And I talked to my nephrologist about it, and she goes, I commend you for, and I said, me for what? And she said, when my patients they need that organ, a lot of times people aren't even thinking like you were thinking. You were thinking about her. And that's beautiful. She said, but in my opinion, if she's grown and if she really knows that's what she wants to do, let her do it if she wants to do that for you. So we continued to proceed. At that time, also, the Discovery Health Channel was following me. You would have been able to see my story on the Discovery Health Channel because I was in the newspaper there, the Chicago Sun-Times, and several of the papers. They were doing an expose on transplantation, and someone dropped my name, and they did a story on me. And so Discovery Health Channel wanted someone to follow who had an interesting lifestyle. She said, oh, I got a cop and she's got kidney disease. And they're like, what? And these guys were great. I mean, they followed me to my doctor's appointments. We had been filming maybe 2-3 months of coverage. And we were sitting down finally at the end. Everything was great. Everybody, my tests were great, ready. She was ready to go with her test. And it was good with her test. We were all meeting with the transplant team just to set a date. And Discovery Channel was filming. We were waiting for her to come downstairs because she was working that day. And she was running about 10 minutes behind. No big deal. She might have got caught on the floor. But after 20, 30 minutes, they were like, you think is she coming down? And just when I was about to call her, she called on my cell phone. And I'm like, hey, where are you at? We're waiting on you. She said, I have something to tell you, and I just feel so bad. And I'm like, what? I'm thinking something's happened with her situation, or I'm going to have to decline from giving you a kidney. And I'm just holding the phone. I'm just staring ahead. Now the camera's rolling. And I said, what? I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm so sorry. My mother's in a financial situation. I said, stop the camera. And they, shut the camera down. So I go, I was shocked. I just couldn't say anything at that moment. And I was just like, I don't believe it. Okay. And okay, I'll talk to you later. Wait, I said, no, it's okay. So we got off the phone, and already tears were coming, down my eyes. And they're like, what happened? And I'm trying to share it with them, and they were so sad for me. I mean, I felt almost like they were more sad. They were like, oh no. And So yeah, so that's what happened. That fell through with her. And so that in turn caused all the coverage to cease, because the whole point was supposed to be in completing it with the transplant. So my son's wedding was coming up, and that same weekend, and that next weekend, I'm sorry. And so my doctor and she's consoling me. She was actually the chief of nephrology, and she said, "I'm so sorry, and don't give up." And I guess you kind of called it. It was probably better for her not to be a donor, but she said, "But listen, Audrey, I want you to go and enjoy Brian's wedding, and when you come back, we're going to have to talk about getting you started on dialysis, because we've held out long enough, and your numbers are rising, and you feeling more worse, and I do not want you to get to a point where one day you'll wake up and you'll be so sick you can't get out of bed, because then we can't do the transplant if it comes your way." Now, also, I didn't say, of course, I was on the list, the deceased donor list too. That list at that time in Illinois was 5 to 6 years. It's longer than that now. The last time I looked at the stats, I think it said about 7.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah, it's crazy. And so my godson, my son, best friends, right out of grammar school, all through high school, college. He was always at my house. He comes from a very big family. He's the oldest brother, and he would spend a lot of time in my house, because my son, I only had my 2 kids, and the daughter and my son, and it's not like he grew up with a brother. So they were really close, and he was a part of my son's wedding. And so at the rehearsal dinner, everybody thought the surgery was a go. Of course, we hadn't told anybody, nobody knew. And he said, "God, Mom, when is the surgery? Because I want to come home." He was finishing up his master's down in Tennessee. And I said, "Oh, well, we'll talk about it later. I'll let you know." And he said, "Why didn't you just tell me now?" Because he knew we were in that meeting. He just didn't know the outcome of it. And so I blew him off, poo-pooed him off in a nice way. "Oh, we'll talk about it. I got to go over here and see about this." And then he went and asked my son. I found out later, and he said, "She didn't tell you?" And he goes, "No." He said, "She backed out." And he said, "What?" And so next thing I knew, he came up behind me and he hugged me. And, I remember I started tearing up, and he said, "God, Mom, I'm so sorry." He said, "I'm getting tested before I leave to go." And I go, "No, you're not." "Oh, no, no. I'm going on dialysis. It's going to be okay." He said, "I'm getting tested." And he was determined to do it, and he did it too, like the day after. And I remember him calling and saying, "Guess what? After a certain point, I don't know if I'm a match for you." They called and they said, "Your godson is like a 6 or 7 antigen match, because he's an O donor." And I remember just like, "Oh my God, oh my God." So he started undergoing the test at University of Chicago. We get assigned different nephrologists. The nephrologist turned him down because his calcium level was a fraction of a point higher. Fraction, Uncle Jim. This guy had also turned down, remember I told you I had a previous potential donor. And I just remember when I saw him, I just remember saying, did I wrong you in another life?" "What?" I said, "You must have something against me. What have I done to you? Do I remind you of somebody?" And he goes, "What are you talking about, Miss Lang?" I said, "You turned down all my donors. This is my godson. He's 25. He's a vegetarian. He doesn't smoke. He doesn't drink. And you turn him down because he's a fraction." And I was just so angry.
Not to mention he's a perfect match.
Oh my God. I was like, oh. So, I just, and my nephrologist said, "I am so sorry. I don't really agree with this either, but I can't override him with with that. Yeah. So my godson said, I'm going to Northwestern because his dad worked there. And he even told me, you all should come over here. And I was like, no, Raj, I'm tired. I'm tired. I can't, you keep taking that hit over and over again. That's what really knocks you down. You get that close to go 20 steps back. And so I was just fine with going on dialysis. And we did have to start. I did, excuse me, have to start. I chose PD. After they went into my arm, they did the doctor did a fistula, merged my veins for an active fistula, which he was amazing because I never even had a scar. And I don't think it was ready. And the nurse, instead of going in it, she infiltrated it and went through it. And it was excruciating. I was angry because it hurt so bad. And I just was like, you'll never put that in my arm again. I mean, she was an awesome nurse, but I was like, no. And that's when another nurse said, did you tell her about PD? Because I think it would be better for her lifestyle. So that's when I got introduced to that. It was great, better for me. I did the night cycler. I got on the machine. I had to be on it every night by 7:30, and I was still working. So I would come home, cook dinner for the family, see, if my daughter needed any help with homework, and I'd have to be on that machine at 8. It shut down at about 5:30 in the morning. Clean the tube, wrap it up, jump in the shower, and put my uniform on and went to work every day. Most people in the department did not even know I was sick initially until that large article in the Sunday newspaper was done. And because I never let it change my life. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted to continue to have as normal a life as possible. And, but all during that time was when my godson was finishing up his degree. He got those tests done. They hooked it up where he could get them done down in Tennessee. And Northwestern called us about, it was only like a week or two. It wasn't long at all. And after my doctor sent them the records over, and she expedited them. And after those tests were complete, they said, we got good news and bad news. And we were like, oh my God, which do you want first? Well, give us good news. We need good news. We don't know how they let you all walk out that hospital. You were an excellent potential donor, and definitely an excellent recipient. What? Yes, we are willing to do the transplant. And everybody was so excited. And they were like, well, wait, what's the bad news? Oh, we can't get you in until next Friday, which is going to be, that's right. What? Next Friday? Oh my God. And it was going to be the weekend of my birthday. So it took me a while, Uncle Jim, to think about the fact, years before I thought about the fact that, wow, I got diagnosed and got sick on the weekend of my birthday. And then I ended up getting my transplant all those years later on the weekend of which would have been my 43rd birthday. And
Friday, March 4th, 2005.
Yep. Friday, March 4th, 2005.
Did you have any issues or challenges after your transplant? And how's our friend Roger doing, the donor?
He's great. He tells everybody, he tells everyone, that because another friend of mine in Chicago, he's retired now, news anchor Art Norman, he had us on his show. And he asked Roger, why he did that. I know she's your guy, but he said, he said, I never had any reservations about not doing it, because not only was she a god mom to me, I spent every weekend at her house with my god brother and my god sister being young. He said, you know, I worked for the National Kid. My son, and he went to the kind of high school where it was mandatory that you got a part-time job by your junior year. And they both went after the same, they loved each other, but they were competitive. They both went after a part-time job at the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois. Roger ended up getting offered the job. My son took a job at one of the biggest banks downtown in Chicago, which is actually what sent him into finance. And Roger worked at the National Kidney Foundation all through high school. So he said there was nothing I didn't know about transplantation. So I had no reservations about not jumping up right away to give her a kidney. He said, because I did not want to see Brian and Ashley without their mom. And so that's what he said made him why he did that. And he loved me.
What a great godson. It's my understanding you've had your kidney now for approximately 17 years. How are you doing currently? How would you describe your kidney health as we're talking here today?
Yeah, so excellent. In fact, and I apologize because I think you kind of asked about that there. I never had any problems. Excuse me, Bambi, stop it. I never had any problems from the time I was transplanted. Praise God, no, nothing. I mean, literally, all my labs would be excellent. Fast forward years down the line. Oh, wow. I think maybe just within the last 2015, I apologize for the barking, everyone. She hears someone in the hallway. Bambi, stop that. And she's being defiant.
Can you tell it's a live show?
Right? She never does that when I do a show. That's weird. But anyway, I got diagnosed with parathyroid disease, hyperparathyroid disease. Not sure of all of you, if any of you guys are familiar with that, but because I wasn't. I had to literally research and learn about that. You know, we have thyroid glands, which I believe is 2, and then we have 4 parathyroid glands behind them. Okay, my doctor started to notice that my calcium level was going up. And so he got a bit concerned about that at a certain point. And he said, I've been watching your labs for the last 2 or 3 months. Now, to me, again, that means nothing to me when you say that. Okay, well, should I cut back on milk? Or, yeah, I'm just saying, you know, okay. He said, we don't want that going up that high. Let me see what's going on, because with some recipients, they develop issues with their parathyroids. I'm like, the what? Thyroids? No, the parathyroids. Okay, so gotta go home, do homework on that. He explained a lot to me. I have a great nephrologist. I'm gonna miss him too. He's been my doctor since I've been here. But he said, I'm gonna have a cystomebi scan done. And so when that came back, it did reveal that I had an adenoma on one of my parathyroids. Non-cancerous tumor, which is what that is. And he said, I want to send you to a specialist here who's world renowned for this. He for hyperparathyroid issues. And I'm thinking, where is this guy at? And he said, fortunately, he's right here in Tampa, Dr. Norman. And so I went to see him. He confirmed it through another scan. He said, actually, you've got 3. You've got 2 more. And that's why he said, I always double check. I don't go by the one the doctor does. He says, in fact, I tell a lot of doctors, don't even do the scan, just send them to me. So he said, it's okay. They're all non-cancerous, but we're going to need to remove those. And I was a little freaked out by this, but this procedure was all of like 20 minutes, you know, and of course you're put to sleep, but removed them. Didn't have a problem, had to go on a calcium binder for a while. I want to say I was on that binder about 3 months. And then the numbers elevated again back to where they were supposed to be. So I never had another problem with that. Also, within the last 2 years, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Now, let me just say this about that. This is also something that can manifest with recipients long term. A lot of it has to do with our meds. Our meds they're great for us in maintaining the life of our kidney, but they can be little beasts in their side effects, long-term side effects, especially Prograf. So that probably is what sent me into that. However, diabetes, yeah, right. There you go, Uncle Jim. Yeah. However, diabetes was in my family too. So I kind of look at it as the double whammy, you know, in my case. So it could be either, could have been both. But the good thing for me is that time I found out, I made some more dietary changes where, you know, you got to watch your carbs. You've got to, really have a balance in your eating, portion control. I cut out pretty much sweets. You know, I'm not saying I don't treat myself every now and then, because we got to do that. We're still human. But I am very strategic and disciplined with my diet. And so therefore, when I sat down with a new endocrinologist last month, because the one I had at TGH relocated, he couldn't believe that I wasn't on medication. He goes, because he was like, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I have diet type 2. He said, "I can see that." And he was looking at my numbers. He said, "You are doing amazing, and you're doing this on your own." He said, "Look, you just keep doing what you're doing, because your labs are excellent." He said, "I can tell you, I won't have a patient come in here this week with labs like this. It just doesn't work like that." So he said, "Everything you're doing, Audrey, is right." And he said, "I'm just proud to say that as an endocrinologist." And so I go see my nephrologist for my last appointment next week, and I got labs done. I get labs done the week before. So currently my creatinine is 0.95. Yeah, it's excellent. Yeah, it's that. I was like, hey, I usually run about 0.1, 1.0 or whatever, but 0.5. My A1C has gone down again. So I'm now at like about 6.3, 6.4, which is great for a type 2 diabetic who isn't on medication. And sometimes I'll get a fluctuation of the hemoglobin a little bit, but it's never been at a place where it was a cause for alarm. But other than that, God has really, truly blessed me with a great kidney. I named it the Power Ranger kidney. I mean, yeah. Thank you, Roberta. I'm sorry. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Oh, Bobby's a good friend of the show.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about your podcast history and what you're doing for Bella's Hope for Healing and the work that you're doing with the Urban Health Outreach Media. I just wanted to mention again to our audience, a lot of these things that Bella has done are in the comments to this broadcast. So if you wanted to check out some of her shows or some of her old podcasts, that would be a great place to start. I also wanted to mention to you, Bella, I have two groups. One's named Kidneys and Your Parathyroid, and I have a second group, Kidneys and Diabetes. So I'm extending an invitation to Bella and everybody that listens to this broadcast that, I have issues with my parathyroid too. So if you are interested, reach out to your Uncle Jim and I'll make sure I get you to the right place. Anyway, tell us a little bit about what's going on with your your broadcasts?
Yeah, so you know, I'm with, as you mentioned earlier, the production company is Urban Health Outreach Media, and the director of that is the great Steve Belcher. Steve Belcher is a registered nurse. You know Steve. I'm just sharing this again with the audience. I'm sure many of you do as well. Steve has made such a great impact in this industry as far as bringing to the surface the issues that are surrounding certain ethnic communities in relation to dialysis and the struggles with that, and just he's doing footage on this and locations, and just a lot of times a lot of impoverishing things. You know, I don't have knowledge of that, again, because of the fact that I did PD, you know, and never did hemo in a center. However, I am not oblivious to, I've had to go in some of those places too. When my grandmother was in them, she wasn't, thank goodness, in any terrible places, but still, I would hear the horror stories from other people who were either on dialysis or who had a loved one on it. And so Steve, I still don't remember how Steve got my name from someone and asked me to be a guest on his show. This has been about 3 years ago. And I did his show, and it was great. I mean, we totally clicked. And then he told Jeff, not Jeff, but Jared, about me. Jared's actually my producer now of my show, but Jared also does Warriors Quest, and they're partners in Urban Health. And he asked me to co-host his show with him one night, which I did. And so that is kind of, you know, they got together and said, oh, I think Bella would be great, you know, for her own show. And, you know, they had a show that had been in circulation before called Sisters Against Kidney Disease. And it was done by a really awesome woman who I never, unfortunately, got the chance to meet. Her name was Sorrel. But she, unfortunately, at some point, well, she ventured out on her own and started her own spinoff show. I think it was called Cy Speaks. But I did watch one of her Sisters Against Kidney Disease shows and one of her others, and she was great. But she unfortunately succumbed to her illness, and I don't think she had a chance to get a kidney. And it was very sad because she left a beautiful son behind. But at any rate, I did Sisters Against Kidney Disease, and it always did great. It was the audience was great, the reviews were great, but I had a problem with the name only because I felt it kept guys away. You know what I mean? With it being sisters, I didn't want guys to think that this show was exclusively, you know, just for females. And I kind of just wanted to spin it off at a certain point into my own thing. So I talked to Steve and Jared about, you know, rebranding it. I wanted to expand more on other illnesses. Kidney disease is my baby because I lived it and breathed it, and it will always be that. However, there are so many other illnesses, as you know, Uncle Jim, that are out here that don't get talked about enough. And oftentimes that lead into kidney disease, sadly. Like my brother's illness led into kidney disease. And so I wanted to give a broader perspective of various things. I wanted to get a little bit of this in, a little bit of education. I wanted to talk to some other types of transplant recipients. So, you know, they gave me the green light on that. And that is how Bella's Hope for Healing culminated from that. Yeah, that's how, and it's doing great. And yeah, I'm on my sabbatical right now because of my move and everything, but I'm so looking forward to getting that started back up again, probably sometime in mid-September, you know, when I get settled in. And yeah, and it's just been great.
Okay, just so people know, the two broadcasts that you mentioned with Steve Belcher and Jared Brown, the links to those are both in the comments too. So if you actually wanted to see those, you can. I want to give a shout out to Steve Belcher. He started me in the broadcasting thing, gave me my first chance, has been very helpful in my going out on my own. I also wanted to give a shout out to my buddy Jarrett Brown. Jarrett did several of my shows and produced them. Jarrett is an excellent producer, does a great job. Those guys are both on TikTok, and they're just knocking them stiff on TikTok. So, you check them out on Facebook, check them out on the TikTok, and let them know your Uncle Jim sent you. Talk to us a little bit, Bella, about what's next. What is it that you want to do in the future with your advocacy, your broadcasting?
Yeah. So I definitely, and so many people have been on me about this for years and years, encouraging me to write a book because they find my life story so interesting. As a woman who, was a Chicago cop on the street and who endured a major illness and a single parent, and so I am starting to formulate, that and get that going. And I guess I think I needed to settle into retirement and just regroup. And like I said, being here, figuring out, okay, what am I doing? Am I going to stay here? And but again, that I am now transitioning. So one of my first goals is to really, give more focus to that and get that going. Also, I want to start an organization. I haven't figured out just yet how I want to put it out there, and what type, because I want it a little multifaceted. I don't think I want it just on one thing, so I'm still kind of working with that to figure out what I want to do with that. And I definitely want to actually get in with a transplant organization of some sort. I know I've already started the ball. It's been rolling. The great thing about the connections that I've made here through Tampa General as well as LifeLink is that, and they all, everybody's sorry I'm leaving, and I know how they feel because I'm like, oh gosh, I love you guys too. But people understand too, we transition, we make different advances in life and transitions. And so, but they've already put in calls to people that they know, there, which is really great and heartwarming for me to know that. So in Houston, it's called Life Gift. Yeah, that's what it's called there. So I've already spoken with someone there, and they're excited about meeting me, as well as a few other organizations there. And so I'm looking forward to where that's going to take me. I am someone in this day and age that is not opposed to even doing something part-time, going back to work, maybe doing something part-time, but it has to be with something I love, that I'm passionate about. And I have definitely laid the mallet down for that. It's got to be something I love, which means that's why I said it has to be in the transplant world, because that is where, or hospital, that's where my true passion is.
Okay. Do you have any concluding remarks or statements that you would like to discuss before we close the conversation for the evening? Did I forget anything? Did I miss anything? Anything like that?
No, I don't think at all that you missed anything. What I always like for people to know and suggest to either anyone that's waiting, we'll start there, that is waiting on a transplant, to, like, for instance, our buddy Philip, be encouraged, be steadfast in being knowledgeable like he is too, about your illness and about your transplant. You can never ask enough questions. It's so important to have a full understanding of what's about to happen in your life while you're waiting, you know, and not only that, but even after, to know what to expect. Now, the things like that I've shared, you know, when we talked, you and I, just when you mentioned about any prolonged issues, they're not going to tell you about that in the beginning, and that's okay, because that should not be your focus. Your focus is getting that kidney. However, it is good to be aware of potential things that can come later down the line, because at least you'll be prepared to kind of know if that should happen, you know, then you kind of know what to expect and where to, and you know, where to go with that. Also, I think it's really important that after you get that life-saving organ, you about to live your best life. I know it's exciting. You're not feeling sick anymore. You know, it's like being reborn. It literally really is. But make no mistake, that's a precious, precious gift, whether it's coming from a living donor, especially because that means their person is putting their life on the line for you. And to be, you know, it's so, which you will be very, very grateful for that. I remember telling my godson, thank you so many times. He said, God, Mom, please, you don't have to keep telling me that. But I did, because I just felt so much joy in my heart for what he did, for him laying down his life to save mine. But also, that person who does not get that living donation and it comes from a deceased donor, keep in mind that somebody lost their life to give you life. And I think, this is just my thought, everyone should want to reach out to that family. You won't always get an answer. That's not how it works, because you still got to go through the transplant team to get that letter to them. But that's okay. At least you did the right thing. I think it's just important to thank that family, you know, for that. Also, very important is to not only live and enjoy your new life, but you lift somebody else up that's down. This is the stuff that we do. You know, it's about helping other people. What Uncle Jim does, what I do, what Jared and Steve and countless others. We got so many. We're a very small, Tafaro and Philip, we're small. We're a big community, but we're small in the sense that we all know each other. It's important to lift up someone and help them. That is what God wants us to do. It's not about just us. It's about helping other people. And that's in every aspect of my life. We're just talking about transplantation, because that is where our true blessings come from, in blessing others.
All right. Well, Bella, I would like to thank you so much for coming on tonight and talking to us and educating us, raising awareness. Boy, what a tremendous broadcast this has been, and just a great, great kidney story. We all want to wish you luck with the new move, and I hope you find groups to work with that make you happy. I hope your health continues to be good. I hope you're closer to your children, your grandchildren, your family, so you can go see everybody, and everybody can share and celebrate the tremendous success that Audrey Bella Langston has had with her kidney and her kidney transplant. So, Bella, I've got some announcements I've got to make to the crowd, and you're free to leave anytime that you wish to. And thank you again for such a terrific broadcast.
Thank you, Uncle Jim, and thank you to all your audience. And I really appreciate you letting me share my story. And yeah, Uncle Jim gave you all the information. I would love for you guys to follow my show when I start it back up, and connect with me on Facebook. I'm under Audrey Bella Langston. And God bless you all, and everybody stay safe. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Bella.
Thank you.
All right. So what's going on? August 5th, next Friday, Brooke Taylor Brandeselin is going to be talking to us about silent rejection. That ought to be an interesting broadcast. And we have writers, Martha Gershon and John Santos, coming up August 12th, going to be talking about their new book. And August 19th, we have great kidney advocate, Regional 5 leader for the NKF, Beth Bundridge. And then we have August 26th, we have David LaFleur. He's a PKD patient from Canada. We're going to be doing a little international type thing. So watch this space, and we'll talk soon. You guys have a good evening. Bye-bye.